Nearly 20 years ago, the Stanford Cardinals had an absolute monster of a running back that went by the name of Toby Gerhart. Let me make this clear early on in this video, he was not your new 2025 modern era type of running back. If you were to look up what's the definition of ground and pound, there'd be a picture of Gerhart right next to it, I can guarantee it. He was a bruiser. I wouldn't call him slow by any stretch of the imagination, but he wasn't the fastest player on the football field. In his senior season at Stanford, he rushed for nearly 2,000 yards and had 28 touchdowns. And a lot of people have since forgotten about this, but he was in the closest Heisman race of all time. Mark Ingram, the running back for Alabama, barely, and I mean barely, edged him out by 28 total points. If he wins that Heisman trophy, I firmly believe more people watching this video would have known Toby Gerhart's name. What makes all this even stranger is after his college days at Stanford, nobody really heard anything about this guy. There's many questions people have been asked about Toby Gerhart even to this day, but however, it all circles back to the one. And I mean the one big question we're going to try to get to the bottom of in today's video. What really happened to Toby Gerhart? We're not wasting any time whatsoever, we're jumping straight into this, and you already know, to get into Toby Gerhart's story, we got to throw it all the way back to where things started. Despite terrorizing the competition in the state of California, Gerhart wasn't a highly regarded recruit. He was only a 3-star recruit, which is insanely disrespectful if you gotta ask me, because he almost had 10,000 career rushing yards. Not passing yards, rushing yards. He was also Gatorade High School Player of the Year, but I can't get over the fact that he had, to be exact, 9,662 rushing yards. Those are ungodly numbers and stats, and unless I'm highly mistaken, I believe those 9,662 rushing yards rank either second or third all-time in high school football history. You don't need me to sit up here and rant and rave and tell you how amazing he was in high school. I think get the point, but the scouts, they didn't see it, and I kind of understand it. And here's what I'm talking about. He didn't look the part, and even when he was at Stanford, when you looked at Toby Gerhart, you didn't think, oh yeah, one of the best running backs in the nation. But he was. He had, if you gotta ask me, more of that middle linebacker, defensive edge rusher type of build. That is my best assumption as to why, as you can see right here, he was only a 3-star recruit, and they actually list him as a fullback coming out of high school, which is funny. I think that right there actually goes to prove how these scouts viewed him, not a serious running back at the next level. He didn't have a lot of big-time schools going after him, but he had one that stuck out to him, and that was Stanford. The visit went amazing, he loved the coaching staff, so he committed and signed there. He arrived on campus in 2006, and it was a year that Gerhart and Stanford, for that sake, they like to forget. They went 1-11. But Gerhart would see immediate playing time. He appeared in 12 games, had 106 carries for 375 yards, averaging 3.5 yards per carry. Not really good, 0 touchdowns. Fast forward time to the following season, 2007, there's not much to say. He only played in 1 game before suffering an injury. He had a major knee injury that sidelined him the remainder of the season, but he would come back in 2008, and this was his breakout year. In 2008, his junior year, he would have one of the best seasons at the time for a Stanford running back. Of course, it doesn't look like that stellar of a season because you had your Christian McCaffreys and Bryce Loves come through. By the way, what happened to Bryce Love? Let me know in the comment section if you want to see a video on him. But like I was saying, back in 2008, this was looked at as one of the better years for a Cardinal running back. In 12 games played, he had 210 carries for 1,136 yards, surpassing the 1,000-yard mark, averaging over 5 yards per carry. You like to see that. And 15 tutties. But it is worth mentioning, although it was a really good season, nobody thought heading into his senior year 2009, this guy was going to be competing for the Heisman Trophy. Yet, he did, and I'm going to show you stats first, and then we're going to talk about it so you have a better perspective. In his final year in 2009, senior season, like I said, he had 343 carries, career high, 1,871 rushing yards, averaged 5.5 yards per carry. That's fantastic. And 28 touchdowns. But here's arguably the best stat about Toby Gerhart in 2009. He helped Stanford make a bowl game for the first time in 8 years. Stanford finished that year 8-5. He also led the nation in total rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. If you gotta ask me, this is one of the best Heisman Trophy races of all time. Taking a trip down memory lane, there was legitimately 5 players that were competing for this Heisman Trophy. Tim Tebow from Florida, Ndamukong Suh, what about him? I thought he had an argument for winning it. He only finished in 4th. Colt McCoy from Texas, great argument there. Toby Gerhart, and of course, the winner, Mark Ingram from Alabama. You got to remember, this is a year where Alabama and Nick Saban got their revenge on Tim Tebow and the Florida Gators, also Urban Meyer, in the SEC Championship. But what if Tim Tebow beats Alabama for a second straight year? maybe he potentially had a legit shot of winning this. But of course, with him losing Alabama, that wiped out all the chances and odds. Outside Tebow, you got a player who I believe till this day had arguably the best season out of any defensive lineman in the history of college football, Ndamukong Suh. He was wreaking havoc. He almost beat Texas by himself, and they should have won that game. If you know, you know. Since that 2009 season, I've yet to see a player take over a game on the defensive side of the ball like Ndamukong Suh. Was he kind of dirty? Yeah, sure, but I can overlook that because the dude was a beast. Ahead of him, you had Colt McCoy. We all know him. And then the final two, Gerhart, Ingram. I'm showing you the official voting right here. It was neck and neck, the closest Heisman race of all time. You're never going to see another one like this. By the way, not just Gerhart and Ingram, but look at McCoy. They all had within 25 first place votes. Mark Ingram had 227, McCoy, he had 203, and Gerhart had 222. Just speaking about Ingram and Gerhart, you had two great arguments for both of these players. Ingram's argument is he's having a fantastic season on the best team in the nation who didn't lose a game, and Gerhart's argument is he had the most rushing yards, the most touchdowns. Sure, he didn't play as stiff as a competition, but guess what? He led Stanford to an 8-5 season. Best season in 8 years. We could sit up here for the next 20 minutes and dissect this 2009 Heisman Trophy race. Ultimately, Ingram will win it, which means Gerhart, he's going to be forgotten about. And that's what happened. Unless you're a die-hard college football fan like me and maybe some of you watching this video, your casual person out there is not going to remember who finishes second in the Heisman Trophy race. It's just not going to happen. You can ask one of your best friends right now, hey, who finished second in the Heisman race last year? They probably don't even know. Although Gerhart came up short in the Heisman race, his career, it was far from over, and he had a lot ahead of him. In the 2010 NFL Draft, he got selected with the 51st pick in the second round by the Minnesota Vikings. His rookie year was okay, at best, nothing to get rallied up about. Played in 15 games, had 81 carries for 322 yards, 1 touchdown. His second year, which was 2011, he actually started 5 of those games. Carries increased a little bit, had 109 for 531 yards and 1 touchdown. So at that point in time, I was like, all right. You know, this ain't too bad of a pick. We're at least getting something out of him. But in that third year for the Vikings, it was quite clear and obvious he just wasn't going to be the guy for them. His opportunities were limited, and to make a long story short, for 2012 and 2013, he didn't play a whole lot. It is worth noting, and I already know some of you have flown to the comment section to say this. Trust me, I know that the Minnesota Vikings had prime Adrian Peterson at the time. That's why Gerhart wasn't playing. So before one of you nerds run to the comment section and say that, I'm already game, I already know. It's fairly simple. Gerhart wasn't playing because he had one of the best running backs in NFL history ahead of him. I can't harp on this enough. That's why he never got a quote-unquote, I guess you'd say, legit shot with the Vikings. He wasn't the main guy. In March of 2014, though, he would sign a 3-year, $10.5 million contract with the Jacksonville Jaguars. How about that? That is a pretty big contract for a guy who really didn't do anything up to that point. And I get it. He didn't do anything because he wasn't getting the opportunity, but I don't think a running back nowadays in 2025 that was only averaging like 200, 300 yards per season was essentially a backup will get a contract close to this. In his first year with the Jaguars in 2014, he started 7 of those games, had 101 carries for a measly 326 yards and 2 touchdowns. It wasn't going good for him. He was only averaging 3.2 yards per carry. At the time, career low. The 2015 season didn't go any better. He only appeared in 7 games, and he eventually got hurt, and he got placed on the injury reserve list, and he never came back. With him battling that injury in 2015, he was still trying and attempting to come back in 2016, but there was one big problem with that. All these other teams in the NFL, they weren't interested in him, which meant, yeah, that was pretty much the end of his NFL career. I know that sounds like an abrupt ending and it's kind of harsh, but that was the reality of the situation. Here's what Toby Gerhart himself had to say about it. I was a testament to both. I had multiple operations, broke several bones, and tore various ligaments throughout my 6-year NFL career. I managed a core injury poorly in 2015, thinking that playing through it would help my career more than surgery and rest. After the Jaguars released me in 2016, I believed I could still play, but 32 GMs, general managers, disagreed, like we just talked about. Suddenly, I was no longer 1 in a million. I was 1 of a million, trying to find a new identity. And you want to know what that identity was? Drum roll, please. He became the director of sales for an IT company. I don't think we need to sit up here for the next 5-10 minutes and talk about, well, why didn't he work out in the NFL? It's simple. Got drafted by a team who already had a star running back in Adrian Peterson, which meant he wasn't going to play a lot. When you can't play a lot, you can't prove yourself. And then, once he got to Jacksonville, I hate to say this, but it's the cold hard truth, he wasn't that good. Then when you take into account he was battling injuries, it was a recipe for disaster. But Toby Gerhart's a smart guy. He's got a great career for him. He's made a bunch of money already. I think he's doing just fine. I do gotta say, he is definitely a low-key guy because there isn't a trace of him anywhere on social media. He is living an ideal lifestyle if you gotta ask me. Quiet and peaceful. No drama. Many more things I could say. Want it off here. I'm curious. Let me know your thoughts down below about that.